With the likes of Xbox Game Pass, as well as the recently announced Xbox ROG Ally handheld and limited edition MetaQuest 3S Xbox edition, it is clear that Microsoft no longer sees the Xbox console as the pillar of its gaming empire it once was. This shift in strategy ultimately feels like the death of Xbox as we know it, to be replaced with a completely different strategy altogether. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you several theories as to what has led to Xbox's demise and what is taking its place instead. Hey, it's Nathaniel, and this is the death of the Xbox as we know it. Now, the foundational pillar of any console empire has historically been console exclusivity. You bought a console because that was the only way to play games you wanted to play. And nothing is more iconic than the likes of Master Chief from Halo and Marcus Phoenix from Gears of War for Xbox, Kratos from God of War and Nathan Drake from Uncharted for PlayStation, or Link from Legend of Zelda and Mario from basically every Nintendo game imaginable. But as the years passed, Xbox struggled to produce more iconic generational characters. PlayStation had the likes of Aloy from Horizon, Ratchet and Clank, Sackboy from Little Big Planet, Ellie and Joel from The Last of Us, and even Marvel's Spider-Man. Not only were they outstanding icons that were instantly recognizable as a PlayStation exclusive, the games also covered a variety of genres, from action-adventure and action RPG, to kid-friendly, to platforming, to dark story narratives. Nintendo, ultimately the king of icons, has a bench so deep they actually struggle to bring out games for them. Mario and Link are by far their most iconic characters, but through association, the likes of Luigi, Bowser, Princess Peach, Kirby, and the rest of the Mario crew are also well recognized. Samus from Metroid, while not as prominent as the others, is still quite recognizable as a Nintendo icon. And who could forget Pikachu and the entire Pokédex of Pokémon that exist? And their list of games cover the entire gamut of genres, from racing to action-adventure, to RPG, to casual, to platforming, so on and so forth. Xbox, by comparison, feels like its only tentpoles over the years have been Halo, Gears of War, and Forza. And while they're all fantastic games, having only 3 franchises to be the reason you choose an Xbox over a Nintendo Switch or a PS5 is a bit of a hard sell. What's worse is that both Gears of War and Forza are no longer console exclusives, being able to be played on a PS5. Microsoft is basically throwing away literally every reason to buy an Xbox. And the most recent console exclusives have been a bit of a mixed bag. Redfall was a public flop. Avowed was actually well received. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, while also being well received, is actually a timed exclusive, also being able to be played on PS5. The most ridiculous one was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. It spent a grand total of 4 months as a timed exclusive before it was released on PlayStation. 4 months! And then there's Starfield. One of the most highly anticipated new IPs of late from veteran studio Bethesda became an Xbox exclusive after Microsoft bought the company. And it seemed like a good win for console sales, until it was released on Game Pass the same day the game was released for Xbox. I even played Starfield on day one myself because I have an Xbox Game Pass account without needing to purchase an Xbox Series X. So if you can play supposedly Xbox exclusive games, but not on an Xbox, then is there a reason to get an Xbox at all in the first place? And in fact, that leads me to my next point. Xbox Game Pass, often touted as the Netflix for games, was released back in 2017 as part of Microsoft's focus on cloud-based services. And in reality, this was probably the beginning of the end for the Xbox console. It allowed subscribers to access a rotating library of new and classic games, without having to fork out money to purchase each game to play them. And if you played at least 2 games a year, it more than justified subscribing to the service. While PlayStation also came out with their own version called PlayStation Plus, what made Game Pass different was the fact that it wasn't just exclusive to Xbox consoles. Game Pass also worked if you had a PC, and even better for PC users, you could play the exact same game on PC instead of Xbox if it was released for PC as well. So if you didn't have an Xbox but had a PC and the game was available on both, you didn't need to get an Xbox console to play the same game. Which comes back to the original question of, if you can play a supposedly Xbox exclusive game but not on an Xbox, why get one at all? Then there's the developer side of things. One of the issues with subscription services like this is it can reduce the actual revenue a game developer can make. To be fair, Microsoft does pay the developers to release the game on Game Pass, but because they're not selling actual copies of the game developer could be losing out on revenue that could be going back to them. That's why you rarely tend to see brand new games released on a subscription service on day one. They're usually only added to the service at least maybe 6 months to a year down the track after they've made money on selling copies of their game. However, there have been multiple games that have been released as an Xbox exclusive, but also on Game Pass on day one. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is a good example of this. It was wildly successful, selling over 3.3 million copies on all consoles in its first 33 days. But because it was also released on Game Pass on day one, a lot of people ended up playing it there, myself included. Now, if you had an Xbox or a PC and wanted to play it, all you needed to do was sign up for Game Pass, because paying $10 for 1 month of Game Pass or even $1 for the trial is infinitely less than paying $50 US for a full copy of the game. And it's estimated that over 1 million people played the game via Game Pass in its first week alone. You can imagine how much revenue 1 million copies sold of a game would bring in for a game studio. But because it was released on day one on Game Pass, none of that extra revenue exists. So developers really want to make a console exclusive game for Xbox when Microsoft will get them to release it on Game Pass and lose out on potential revenue. You could potentially consider Xbox Game Pass as a console itself, and getting games to be released on Game Pass is another form of console exclusivity. Rough estimates have Game Pass subscribers at about 35 million, while Xbox sales are around 33. But there are over 1 billion Windows devices out there. And if you could get Game Pass on even just 10% of those devices, that's 100 million subscribers, which is so much more money that Microsoft could bring in than from just console sales alone. But to achieve that, they need to expand their reach and target the right consumer base, which is why you see Microsoft diluting the Xbox brand in the name of profit through partnerships. Microsoft recently announced 2 Xbox devices: the Xbox ROG Ally handheld device and the limited edition Xbox MetaQuest 3S. However, neither of them are proper Xbox devices. First, the Xbox ROG Ally handheld device. It is not, as one would initially think, a true Xbox handheld device. While yes, it can play Xbox games, it is merely another conduit for Xbox Game Pass. In fact, it is basically a redesigned ROG Ally being a fully functioning Windows 11 computer with an Xbox-specific overlay, which, to be fair, has been noted to actually make a bit of a difference with regards to gaming performance. But any so-called Xbox game you play on that handheld device is either a PC version of the game or played via cloud streaming, both which are accessible through Game Pass. Then there's the fact that because it's a fully fledged PC, it also has access to other game stores like Steam or Epic Games. So not only can you play supposedly Xbox exclusive games, but also PC games as well. Don't get me wrong, I really like the ROG Xbox Ally, and I'm contemplating getting one for myself. But while it's great that you can then play Xbox games on the go, there's actually nothing that makes this particular handheld device any different from the existing PC handhelds from other companies, such as MSI, Lenovo, or even the Steam Deck, apart from the fact that it has Xbox branding on it. I mean, I could also go get myself an MSI Claw, use Game Pass on it, and that could also be called an Xbox handheld. Then there's the Xbox MetaQuest 3S. It's a virtual reality headset made by Meta, which you could consider somewhat a direct competitor to Microsoft in some aspects. But what makes this particular MetaQuest 3S different from any other MetaQuest 3S headset? Nothing! It is literally just a normal MetaQuest 3S with an Xbox coat of paint. It can't play any proper Xbox games from the device itself, but instead can play Xbox games via cloud streaming with, you guessed it, Game Pass. It was just created to promote the fact that you can use Game Pass on MetaQuests, so you don't even need this Xbox branded MetaQuest to play Xbox games on it. Any recently released MetaQuest will actually work. And not only that, the MetaQuest doesn't provide any special immersive VR version of Xbox games. It's just a standard 2D screen that acts like a TV display. I understand Microsoft's game plan here. Satya Nadella has always preached that Microsoft needs to be a cloud-first, platform-agnostic organization. So partnering with Asus and Meta is a sound business strategy to expand Game Pass's reach and bring in more revenue. But again, it feels like they are doing this at the expense of the Xbox console itself, using these partnerships to dilute the core Xbox brand and experience down to a single application that can be installed on any device with a screen in its effort to achieve its Xbox Anywhere vision. And that makes its recent announcement about working with AMD to design their next generation Xbox all the more confusing. Xbox recently released a video talking about a strategic multi-year agreement with AMD to co-engineer silicon across their portfolio of devices, including their next generation Xbox consoles. Now, there were two key takeaways I inferred from this video. The first is the more obvious one, that they're working on a next generation console. If they're referring to a next generation console to come after the Xbox Series X, then the question I have is, why? Everything points to them not thinking it's a viable plan. From not having proper console exclusives and releasing them on PC at the same time, to creating Xbox Game Pass, to pushing Game Pass onto every device imaginable. It seems to me that having a new living room console is not their primary focus anymore. And the only way it does is if they plan to double down on console exclusives that only release on console and not on PC, since they bought massive game studios like Activision Blizzard, Bethesda, and Obsidian. But here's the thing. Just the other day, Microsoft cut 9,000 jobs across their entire Xbox division, which impacted virtually every team and game studio Xbox owned. Multiple unannounced games were cancelled, 50% of Turn 10 Studios, the team behind Xbox exclusive Forza Motorsport, were cut, and an entire studio, The Initiative, created specifically to reboot a classic game, Perfect Dark, into an Xbox console exclusive, was closed down. So if you were planning on making a new console that had Xbox console exclusives, why are you impacting, cancelling, or closing down the very game studios that are making these exclusives for you? It makes no sense. And then there's the second takeaway. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but in the promo video, there's a line that the presenter says, which is,
"That's why we're working closely with the Windows team to ensure that Windows is the #1 platform for gaming."
That single line could be the final nail in the coffin. Because unless for some absurd reason they're going to make the next Xbox come with Windows, that line could be interpreted as Microsoft saying they're going to cease making the console entirely and focus all their efforts on PC handhelds and PC gaming. The only reason I can remotely think of that makes any sense at all as to why they would continue to make a new console is that it would be markedly cheaper than a PC handheld or gaming PC for a consumer to purchase. And it's Microsoft covering all of their bases. This then gives Microsoft yet another place to encourage people to use their Game Pass subscription, which brings in even more revenue. So where does that leave us? Well, if you had hopes that Xbox could make a roaring comeback in their next generation battle, you might have to temper your expectations. The old goal of having an Xbox console in every living room is a thing of the past. The future of gaming, according to Microsoft, is instead to have an Xbox Game Pass on every screen imaginable. Your laptop, your TV, your PC handheld device, or even your virtual reality headset. Where there is a screen, that is where Xbox wants to be. This new future, however, comes at a cost. One paid for by its original fans and the history of having the iconic black and green box under the TV. This isn't the death of Xbox in gaming, but it is the death of a legacy. A console that defines so many of our gaming memories. Whether this strategy pans out well for Microsoft and whether future gamers will be happy with this new status quo is something only time will tell. Thanks for taking the time to watch my video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic. Do you agree or disagree with anything I mentioned? Is this truly the death of Xbox as we know it? Do you have any other theories yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like what you saw, then please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thanks again until staying until the end. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.